3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Nittany No Huddle Podcast.
From Philadelphia to Los Angeles
And everywhere in between.
filmed at the Nittany No Huddle studio.
It's Jordo, Zach, and Coach Devin covering all things Penn State football all the time.
This is from 45 and it's blocked. Lions scoop it up. Brad Haley will score.
And here we go.
All right, welcome back, Nittany No Huddle Nation, to another episode. Today's agenda is to cover Penn State's big game at Indiana this weekend. It's a 3:30 kickoff on Saturday. It'll be on ABC for those of you who want to watch that embarrassment that is Indiana. Now Penn State is listed as 14-point favorites. I'm just going to go hard here. Penn State's 14-point favorites over Indiana, who is on a 5-game losing streak. Is that right, Zach? Or
Yep.
5-game losing streak, including Cincinnati, Nebraska, Michigan, Maryland, and Rutgers. So, Zach, I'll turn it over to you first here. Do you want to hit a couple of their offensive players? I wrote down 4 offensive names, so whoever you don't, I can hit 2. Obviously, Jordo, he's here for his looks, not necessarily his comments.
Sure. Well, the first thing I want to mention is, and we talked about this a little bit before we hopped on here, how interesting it is that Indiana has really fallen off and is clearly struggling. But they actually opened the season with a Week 1 win over Illinois, who at that time nobody really knew what Illinois was going to turn into. So that's kind of interesting to me. So they're clearly not completely devoid of talent. And you just referenced a couple of the 5-game losing streak in a vacuum. Cincinnati, Michigan, Maryland. A lot of those losses aren't really embarrassing type losses. The Rutgers one maybe falls into that category, but the one guy that jumps off the page to me is Cam Camper, their top receiver. He's got 46 catches for 569 yards, only 2 touchdowns, but he's averaging 12 yards a catch, so he's doing some damage through the air, and he's racking up. He's got 15 more catches than the next guy on the team, so he's clearly their number 1 target, and a guy that Penn State's going to have to definitely have their eyes on, because they clearly are force feeding him the ball. Connor Bazalak, I think is how you pronounce the last name. I could be wrong. Obviously, the quarterback. His stats aren't out of control. Like, they're not crazy, but I think he's had a pretty good year. He's got about 2,100 passing yards, only a 55% completion percentage, but he does have 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. The interesting from one of the stats that stands out to me, actually more on like a team-based, is he's got sacked 23 times. I think Clifford's only been sacked 8 times. So that to me signals that they're having trouble keeping him upright, and that the offensive line is maybe one where this is an opportunity for Penn State's defensive line. We talked about in the Ohio State recap how we just felt like we didn't get enough pressure on CJ Stroud. This is a game where you really would like to see the Penn State front get some pressure on Bazalak, and if they don't, I think he's good enough that he can do some things through the air and make them pay.
Yeah, so Jordan, I'll let you say anything that you think about either of those as well. I think one of the big things that stand out is that Indiana has been pretty one-dimensional this year. If you look at their rushing attack, they are currently averaging 80.4 yards per game. They are 128th in all of FBS in rushing yards. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I think there's 131 teams right now in FBS, I think. So 128th out of 131. It's pretty impressive, honestly, to be that low. So their leading running back is Shaun Shivers. He's a 6-year senior who actually transferred from Auburn. He was at Auburn the last few years behind Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter. He was actually a team captain there last year, which I kind of caught off guard, being the 3rd-string running back, being a team captain. So must be a good dude, must be a hard worker. He's actually only 5'7" and 188 pounds, and he's their leading rusher at 103 carries for 405 yards and 4 touchdowns. The other thing that really stands out to me, before letting you say some stuff here, Jordo, it is all 4 of these names that I wrote down, which is Connor Bazalak, Shaun Shivers, Cam Camper, the wide receiver, and then their other running back is Josh Henderson, who's had a decent season. I mean, we just said their running game is really terrible, but for how bad they are, he's had an okay season. All four of them are transfer kids. Bazalik is a Missouri transfer. This is his first year in Indiana. Shivers, the Auburn transfer. Henderson transferred from UNC, and Cam Camper transferred from some community college. Normally that would be a joke, but I actually dead serious mean that. It's community college is where it says his transfer was. I don't remember what name of the school was because I've never heard of it. So for him to come from a community college and hack, I just heard you say that. But for him to come from a community college and be putting up those kind of numbers in the Big Ten, it's pretty impressive to me. I think he's a guy that I want to keep an eye on that I haven't really watched play other than a couple of highlights here and there. But he's somebody I want to watch out for. So, Jordan, what do you think about Bazalik, or you probably want to talk about Mr. 5'7" Sean Shivers?
Well, I'll get the Shivers me timbers in a minute, but first thing I wanted to say is going back to Penn State, Indiana, pregame stats. Last 10 games, Penn State is 9-0 when Indiana has people in the crowd. So that's your COVID stat of the day. I do think 14 points isn't enough, to be honest. But it's college football. You really don't see, anything higher than that. And yeah, 5'7", 185 pounds. Like, should I try out for Indiana when I get back? I think I have 4 years of eligibility still. So
maybe
got to bring some humor. I feel like the last one we were very serious. So. Well, it's also Indiana. They're jokes.
Yeah. And also, I mean, as much as like I agree that Indiana is playing really terrible football right now, I hope that Franklin and the rest of the coaching staff has that 2020 Michael Penix, right? Michael Penix diving for the
junior.
Michael Penix Jr. Sorry, Mr. Michael Penix Sr. I hope they have him diving for the goal line on that 2-point conversion. I hope they have that plastered on every single wall so that we don't take them lightly playing at Indiana. I mean, obviously, I think we should cruise pretty easily, but I would hope that poster better be hanging in the halls because they cannot overlook them and just say we're better than them. We're just going to go in and destroy them, even though they probably should.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be our thumbnail for this.
Oh, I know.
Is Penn State on upset alert? Question mark.
Yeah.
Doing it for the clicks at this point in the season.
So Jordan referenced Jordan and Devin both referenced the Penn State's last visit out there. And I'm a huge fan of, if you've never checked it out, there's a website called Winsipedia. It's like Wikipedia, and you can really easily track the history between, like you can bring up the long-term history between two teams. And for me, it seems like Penn State always, while they are 23-2 against Indiana since 1993 when they joined the Big Ten, it seems like every time we go out to Bloomington, it's a battle. And so just let me, if you don't mind, give me a minute here, and I'll lead you through some of the most recent trips to Bloomington. 2020, obviously the 1-point loss to the Penix Jr. 2-point conversion. 2018, Penn State only won 33-28. 2016, the Big Ten title year, Penn State won 45-31, but was losing in the second half of that game. 2014, Penn State won, you'll love this score, 13-7. And in 2011, Penn State won 16-10. And if you only go back a little bit further, 2007, they only won 36-31. 2004, only won 22-18. 2002, 58-25. So you have to go back to 58-25 to find a blowout, a Penn State blowout win in Bloomington. Now, they were mostly all wins, but for whatever reason, and most of those Indiana teams were not good. The 2020 team was obviously a pretty good Indiana squad, but for whatever reason, these games in Bloomington have been a lot closer than advertised. So I'm don't change the banner to Penn State on upset alert, but there's just some kind of weird. I think a lot of these games have been at like noon too, and they're just these like sleepy 11 a.m. Eastern starts, and just takes Penn State a while to get going for some reason. But anyway, just an interesting factoid.
Yeah, I'd like to see Penn State's record against stadiums called Memorial Stadium, because I think that could be an interesting stat line. I feel like we don't play well in Memorial Stadiums. Dead guy games, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean I think that probably covers Indiana's offense a little bit. They're struggling. They are passing offense right now. They are averaging 265, like we said. I think Bazalek can sling the ball around, but hopefully Penn State's defense can put enough pressure on him that it's not gonna be a big issue. I'm with you, Zach. I agree that we can make these jokes and take them lightly, but it's going to be a tough game to play coming off the Ohio State game where it has to feel, even though like we're pretty content with the score, I feel like they're going to be very bummed and frustrated that they ended up losing that game, a game they probably should have won. And it's easy to go into Indiana and say, who cares? We're not even going to try that hard and we'll still be fine. And then all of a sudden you have a game and Indiana's in it in the fourth quarter and it could be a big problem. So I'm with you that we can't take them too lightly. You look at their offensive stats and they're really struggling. So we can flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. I wrote down two names.
Devin, I did want to say one more thing. Indiana is the only team to beat this world beater Illinois team. So
it's a good point. That was a long time ago.
Long time.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I look at the full body of work on these things. And boy, did they work the body in that game. So
that's when you want to catch a Brett Bielema coach team in September before he's starting to, get his belly full and hibernate for wintertime. That's when they're really cooking. So you play Illinois, you want to get them early.
Yeah, exactly.
But real quick, Devin, if I may, before we flip over, I just noted, and I think you're right. I think Bazalek can throw the ball. And I mentioned earlier they've got 23. He's been sacked 23 times. His rushing line right now, and I hate that this is included as rushing stat, is 40 attempts for negative 145 yards. So that just kills your offense. Even if you're a competent passing game, if you're getting sacked that often and for that type of yardage, you're just behind the sticks all the time. And frankly, it makes their rushing game, like the stats say as a team, they're averaging 2.7 yards a carry. But my quick math says when you pull out the QB sacks, they're right about 4 yards a carry. So it may be something where the running game's actually not horrific. It's like the quarterback sacks yardage is just killing them. Either way, it's not good, no matter how you slice it. But
yeah, and the other thing that I just thought of while you were talking about that we probably should mention before going to Indiana's defense is the turnover margin. Indiana right now -4 on the season. They are ranked 101st in the nation with that -4. Bazalek has thrown 9 interceptions, and as a team, they've had 5 lost fumbles this year. So they're turning the ball over. Penn State should be looking to haul around and try to get some interceptions. I'm sure that part of that 9 interceptions is because, like you said, they're behind the sticks a lot. Bazalek is getting sacked on first and second down, and then they're forced to throw in bad situations. So he's ending up with some picks. The other thing is that thinking about defense, they've only forced 5 interceptions this year. So maybe that's a good segue into their defense. I wrote down they have a really solid linebacker, Aaron Casey. He's got 64 tackles on the season, has 9 tackles for loss. I think he's somebody that could get involved in the backfield a little bit. And then they have a pretty decent defensive back, Cam Jones. He's a 6-year kid too. He's on that Clifford graduation plan. 55 tackles. He has a couple TFLs getting into the backfield. He kind of plays that like hybrid slot DB type thing that like Kalen King type player. So those are really the 2 names that I kind of stood out to me watching them play a little bit and on defense. I nobody on their defensive line really stood out to me. Maybe they did to you, Zach, but I don't know. I just feel like we should be able to really control this game on both sides of the ball, hopefully.
Yeah,
I agree.
Devin, I will. Oh, sorry, Zach.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Before you move on, I will say, like, being this far in the season, we kind of know what we are and what other teams are. So, like, our in-depth analysis doesn't have to be like week 1 where we're like, breaking down every player, because I mean, we've seen all of our players and pretty much know what they are as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I really haven't seen anybody on Indiana's defense who should cause us any problems. I will say Nick Singleton should be on alert for a big run this weekend. So I wouldn't
I'm
be
with you.
surprised to see him bust one outside for 60, 70 yards. So,
Yep, I'm with you.
but that's all I got. Sorry to cut you off, Zach.
No, I think what I was going to say essentially is I agree. I think if I'll put it this way, if Indiana were to pull the upset, it has to happen with their offense. It's going to have to be a high scoring game because I don't think they've got a lot of big weapons on defense. They've got a couple defensive backs that I think are pretty solid. Jalen Williams has 19 solo tackles and 4 passes deflected. And Tywan Mullen is a guy who's been around for a couple of years, and I recall him from years past being a solid player. But if you just look at this 5-game losing streak, the offense hasn't been horrible. You know, they've got 24 points against Cincinnati, 21 at Nebraska, 31-10 loss to Michigan. Really isn't all that bad considering what Michigan is doing to some teams. They scored 33 in a loss to Maryland, obviously gave up 38. It's not great. And then they have a 24-17 loss to Rutgers. So I think they're competent offensively. It's just defensively, everybody that has any semblance of offense, and then teams that even don't, like Rutgers, have been able to score on them. So it's the type of game where if you're Penn State and you're just kind of looking, again, just from a surface level standpoint, looking at the scores, you got to think we should score 40 points here. But they've got enough offense that I think they can stick around.
Yeah, and I think, Jordan, you hit something really crucial there about Singleton and even Allen. I think this is a game where we kind of go back to that running game. Mix in a couple shots. Like, let's take some shots downfield with Clifford, or if you watch our Ohio State recap, hopefully Drew Allar. But either way, like, let's take some shots downfield early, first, second down, because I think we can control the line of scrimmage. This is one of those few games on the schedule where I think we can kind of control the line of scrimmage and run the ball. And like you said, I think if Singleton gets space outside, I don't see anybody on Indiana that's really going to outmotor him. And Katron Allen has looked so good the last few weeks that hopefully we can keep him going. I think I would be more surprised if Singleton starts this week, which obviously I don't think that really is a big deal, but I think Allen will probably end up being out there on the first play for the first time this year, which is kind of crazy to have 3 different running backs start in your first 8 games. But I think if you look at Indiana, and they're averaging 183 rush yard or 154 rush yards allowed. They're 11th in the Big Ten. I think we should be able to run the ball, and that's got to be a focus to try to close down this stretch, because either way, whether we do stick with Clifford, which we will, or if Allar gets in at all, we have to have some sort of a running game for when we get into whatever bowl game we eventually go to, whether we're 10-2 or 9-3. So hopefully we can control the ball, and then I think taking shots will be big for me. Is can we stretch them out and make them expand on defense so that we can run the ball inside rather than some of these shorter crossing patterns, screens. Like I don't think we need that kind of stuff on Saturday. I think it's send guys deep, sling it around, and if it's not there, then you run the ball. So
yeah, I want to see. I know we always start off under center first play. I want to see them run a play action with like a one move like hitch or post route and just send it over the top first play. Because I know they're scouting, like they're going to look at us like, oh, they always line it up and run it first play. But to hit them with something like that would be awesome. So that's what I want to see. I doubt we'll see it, but
no. Zach, do you have any other last comments on Indiana before we move into our top 10s and pick'ems?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. I think I said a little bit earlier. I suspect with this is actually a 3:30 start. I could see a slow start for Penn State though. And Devin, you actually made a great point about these types of losses. Penn State obviously they got just blown the heck out by Michigan. And one of the questions is, how do you respond to that? And the Minnesota game, they showed up, they responded, did pretty much exactly what you'd want to see. The Ohio State game is sort of a different type of pain. The one where the game that you let slip away, it could be really easy to just have a a slow start and just try to, figure out where to go from there. Conversely, you could also really rally after a moment like that. And so it'll be interesting to see how they come out. I think the Minnesota game is indicative of, I think there's good leadership on this team, and I think they'll be ready to play, but you never know. And these types of, dreary games in Bloomington, Indiana, when they're having a down season, the stadium's probably going to be like 1/3 filled.
Yeah.
Can sometimes allow games to not have that juice that a lot of times as players you feed off of.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I think that's probably a good segue into our predictions for the game. Unless Jordan, you have anything else you want to add? All right, so I'll kick us off because I feel like I usually go last, and then someone takes my score here. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to go Penn State 34, Indiana 20, because they score a late touchdown. I think it's really going to be a 3-score game most of the day, but I think we try to pack it in a little early. Allar's out there maybe in the third quarter instead of early fourth quarter, and Indiana does get a couple scores or even at least one late. So I'm gonna go Penn State 34, Indiana 20. Jordan, what do you got?
I'll go next. Since you stole my numbers,
I doubt that.
Penn State 35, Indiana 12, 4 field goals.
Settle for 4 field goals. Ben don't suck.
But don't suck. Yeah.
Until they
or
do.
Ben and suck, as apparently somebody said in our comments this last week.
Which was funny.
I think someone said
all-time comment.
Penn State University.
Yeah. I should have pinned that comment.
So I'm kind of pretty much right around where you guys are at. I'm thinking it's going to be something like Penn State 38, Indiana 17. I think they have some offense. I think they'll be able to do a little bit offensively and most likely through the air. But I think Penn State's offense should be able to really move the ball somewhat at will. And I'm with Devin from a minute ago. I would love to see us just pound the rock. It's the type of game where I'd love to see Allen and Singleton both get 100 yards. That's my wish.
Yeah. Zach, I didn't know you were a big Fetty Wap fan with that 1738 pick.
So I don't even know what that reference means. So sorry.
It's all right.
Man, that would have been a perfect time for you to say I understood the reference and reinsert the Captain America meme, but it's probably funnier that you don't know what it means, actually.
Yeah. Let's say I listen to a different genre of music.
All right.
Baby Shark, probably. You probably hear a lot of Baby Shark now.
Yes. Baby Shark. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
Paw Patrol.
Yeah. Chase is on the case. Yeah, hear that a lot.
All
right. Let's move on to our top
child's podcast.
sorry. So sorry. Let's move on to our top 10s. Jordo, how about you go first since you only have a top 10 and it's wrong? So why don't you go first?
All right. Number 1, I got Michigan. Can't remember if I had Michigan or Tennessee last week.
You flipped them the last 3 weeks. So
I got Tennessee 2, TCU, undefeated TCU, sitting at 3 this week. College football playoff is desperately trying to figure out how to keep TCU out of this playoff. So that'll be fun to watch down the stretch. Got Georgia 4. We'll see what they are this weekend, and we'll cover that in the pick'ems, but that'll be a great game. Got Ohio State at 5. I don't know. Not sold on them, so I'm going to keep them 5. Clemson 6. Oregon 7. Ole Miss showing up. We got 8. And then 2-loss K-State, put an absolute thrashing on them. The Pistol Petes out there of Oklahoma State. So I got them up there. And then I got USC sitting at 10.
Yeah. I mean, other than you just keep switching Tennessee and Michigan, I guess it's all right. So I can go next. I put Zach and I usually send Jordan actually usually does too, but he is a little overseas. So I put our full top 25s that you guys can see at the bottom if you're watching this.
Technically, by time, I sent mine first.
Yeah, you did. By time, yeah. No, you sent yours last because you're 7 hours ahead of us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so at number 1, I moved Tennessee up to number 1. I'm kind of with what Jordan and Zach have said. I still think Ohio State's really good. I think their win against Penn State was a really good win. I just saw more flaws than I think I thought they had. Um, that doesn't mean at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where they're ranked, because if they beat Michigan in the last game of the season, they're gonna go to the Big Ten title game. If they win that, they're going to the college football playoff. So it really doesn't matter. But I moved Tennessee up to number 1. I moved Michigan up to number 2 because they beat Penn State by more points. And then I had Ohio State at number 3. Kept Georgia at number 4. I think they're starting to look better the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, however long it's been since that Missouri game. I think they're starting to look better, which is good for them. Moved TCU up to 5. I thought another really good win for them. Alabama, I think, is the as much as it sucks, Alabama's scares me that they're going to find a way into the college football playoff and win the national championship, and I hate it so much. 7 is Oregon. 8, I moved Clemson down a couple spots. I think their wins now look a lot worse than they did, with Syracuse losing to Notre Dame. NC State doesn't look real good right now with their quarterback being hurt. Florida State's kind of wishy-washy. So I moved Clemson down. They're now behind 2 one-loss teams, but they're kind of in that boat where if they just run the table, they should still be in the top 4, and I'd be surprised if they're not. Moved UCLA up to number 9, and then I'm kind of on the Zach Illinois train. I think that they are playing some really good, hard-nosed Big Ten football. And sure, maybe that's a homer pick because I just like the Big Ten and I want 3 Big Ten teams in my top 10. So I put Illinois up to number 10. And you can see the rest there at the bottom. Penn State at number 15 in my ranking. So, Zach, what you got?
So I'm sticking with Tennessee at number 1. I think they had a huge win. I was really impressed because for the most part, it's been all offense for Tennessee. They absolutely shut Will Levis down. And I know Kentucky's not elite offensively, but they've been solid offensively this year. And I think the final score was 44-6. So it was really nice if you're a Tennessee fan to feel like, hey, the other side of the ball showed up and right in time for this colossal matchup with Georgia that I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch this week. I've got Michigan still at number 2. I've got Georgia at 3. Pretty much whoever wins that Tennessee-Georgia game is probably going to end up number 1 in my ranking. I've got TCU number 4. I don't know how I feel about that, but I know offensively they're really good, and they just keep winning, and they've got a chance to really run the table here because they've got, as far as the Big 12 goes, they've kind of got at least one of the slots in the title game locked up because they have the tiebreaker over Kansas State and they have the tiebreaker over Oklahoma State. I've got Clemson number 5. I'm sort of with Devin that some of their wins are losing its luster. One of the games we're going to be looking at in our pick'ems is, does Notre Dame have a chance to beat Clemson? It would be really nice to just kind of put the ACC to bed. I don't think Notre Dame is maybe the team to do it, but it could happen. I've got Ohio State 6. I know I'm going to take some shots in the comments. I was shocked by their inability to run the ball and the fact that a team like Penn State, who could not run the ball at all against Michigan, ran the ball pretty well. I think that does not bode well for them. I think long-term they're better positioned to win the national title, make the playoffs, win the national title than say a TCU or a Clemson. But I think for me, they're clearly below the top trio that I see right now, which is Tennessee, Michigan, and Georgia. I've got Alabama at number 7. Yeah, a lot of salt. A lot of salt. I've got Alabama at number 7. I'll kind of echo what Devin said. I think they have a big game this week at LSU. After that, there's a chance they're going to finish 11-1, make the SEC title game, and be, that Tennessee loss may not really hurt them, put it that way. Yeah. They can get in with that loss. I've got Oregon at number 8. I've been banging the drum for Oregon for a while now. I think they're the best team in the Pac-12, and let's give a little bit of credit to the Pac-12, who's been down for a long time. They've actually got 4 teams right now that are in the hunt. I don't know that. Yeah. I don't think any of them are national title contenders. And no matter how well they play, Oregon's not going to get the stench of that week 1 beatdown from Georgia off of them. But they're really playing well. And Bo Nix, man, we talked about Brian Harsin offline. We talked about Brian Harsin getting fired. Bet they'd love to have Bo Nix right now down on the plains.
You got Bo Nix.
He's been really good this year. I think you got to give him credit. I've got Ole Miss at 9. Kind of a kind of an ugly win over Texas A&M, but a win's a win in the SEC West, and they only have one loss, so they're just kind of hanging around there. They've got a big matchup with Alabama in a couple weeks. That's going to be the deciding factor for their season because they're not out of it yet. They've got one loss. If they find a way to beat Alabama, they can win the SEC West, as crazy as that sounds. But and then I've got USC at number 10. Kind of an ugly win this past week, but they're just hanging around as well. And it'll be interesting to watch the Pac-12 shakeout because there's 4 teams that are in the mix there. And I've got Penn State at 16. I think, Devin, you said you had them at 15.
Yep.
I have them at 16. I forget where Jordan has them, but we all kind of, I think, fell in line largely with where the AP ended up putting them. I think they in the AP they went from 13 to 16. So that makes sense. You're not going to really punish them too much with the Ohio State loss, especially considering some of the teams around them, like Oklahoma State was in the top 10 and just got absolutely demolished.
Yeah.
Wake Forest getting killed by Louisville. So from a ranking perspective,
awful.
Yeah, it's 16 is a good spot, I think, for Penn State right now. You've got four games coming up that they can win. You would suspect they're going to be able to jump up 4 or 5 or 6 spots just from winning out if they're able to.
Yep, I'm with you. So I think that kind of wraps up our top 25s. Let's put our score predictions back up here while we transition into our pick'ems of the week. So Zach, I typed in your score or your standings here wrong. Zach, do you want to run over the current standing so I can fix our banner if you have that easily?
So I don't have it. I know last week we can get that up though. I know last week I went 5-3.
Okay.
Jordan went 4-4. Devin went 3-5, and our guest picker Jesse was 3-5. So Tim was getting antsy there. Thought he might have some company down at 2-6, but Jesse was able to stay above him.
All right, so Zach, you're up to 33-26, having a pretty good season. Like you said, you always try to pick games that have close spreads. So 33-26, taking a 4-game lead over Jordo. That's a pretty big margin there. Jordo right around 500, just like you've been all season. And then I'm bringing up the rear, 27-32. I was 2 close games away from being in the driver's seat, but I think I might have to stop picking Money Manziel's team because
A&M hurt you.
They keep letting me down.
I think you did have one. You picked UCF, who beat Cincinnati, so you did get one where nobody. You were all alone on that one, and that was actually, not to get off track, but that was kind of a big win for UCF because they're kind of in the hunt now for the American Conference. But
and I probably should not have went with Kentucky, but it was
that was a bold one.
I mean, but it was too easy to just try. Why not? I mean, I don't know if we have anything riding on this pick'em, so why not try?
Case of beer.
I didn't think Kentucky would win, but I certainly wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be a game at least.
Same.
So. Just didn't turn out well for them.
It did not. So, Zach, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Jordan. What? You thought so?
I said I didn't think it would be a game.
Yeah. But all right, Zach, I'll let you take over here, and whoever you want to go first. No picker this week. Sorry to our fans.
We'll if you want to be the guest picker, let us know in the comments.
Send a message.
We'll start. You got to subscribe.
We'll start with a rare Friday night game, just because I love Oregon State. We've got number 24 Oregon State at Washington, and both teams are 6-2, and Washington is a 4.5-point favorite. I'll start us off. I'm going Oregon State. I think Jonathan Smith is doing a really good job there at Oregon State. A tough place to recruit. They play really sound defense and they run the ball. And I don't know about Washington. Their big win early on was Michigan State, who just looks awful. So they
in the locker room.
We won't even get into that. I'm going Oregon State. Jordan, who do you got?
My gut says Beaver Country, but Washington at home. I think I'm going to go Washington.
Okay.
Washington.
All right, Devin.
I was kind of with Jordan there. Like my head is saying Oregon State, my gut is saying Washington. But I think I'm going to stick with the Beavers. Take that road underdog there. They're playing pretty good football again right now. USC was the game that they probably should have won, right? That was USC, not UCLA. Yeah, they probably should have beat USC. And I mean, that game goes a little differently. Now you're 7-1, and you're probably in the top 15 or 12 or something like that. I think they're doing some good things up there in Beaver Country, so I'll go with Oregon State.
I like it. So the next one's a little under the radar and not really a game with national or conference implications, but it might matter to Penn State a little bit. A surprisingly 6-2 Maryland team at a 4-4 Wisconsin that seems to have found their footing with the coach firing. Wisconsin is a 5.5-point home favorite. So we'll start with Devin. Who do you got?
I got Maryland. I think Wisconsin's playing a lot better right now. They're starting to get some traction and playing pretty well for what they have and where they're at recruiting wise and team wise. I think they're playing better than I would have expected them to play. But I think Maryland is solid. I think Maryland's offense has a lot of weapons, and their defense does just enough to keep them from I don't know how I want to phrase it, but it does enough to keep their offense from being like, we need you to go score 60 points. So I think I go Maryland here. Wisconsin's playing better, but I don't think good enough.
Jordan, who do you got?
I was really hoping you would go first so I could just mimic your pick because I really hate this game and I have no idea who's going to win. I'm going to go Scone. Going to go with the home favorite.
So I'm also going Wisconsin. I think they really found their footing in the with the Purdue game. They kind of got back to the basics, and this is an interesting matchup just from speed versus power. You know, matchups make fights, and Wisconsin's going to just try to bully the ball and run the ball and just kind of slow things down. And Maryland, obviously, Devin hit it on the nail on the head. They've got a lot of athletes, so from a strategy standpoint, I think it'll be an interesting game to see who's able to impose their will on the other. We'll keep it moving. Obviously, the game of the week, number 2 in the AP poll, Tennessee at number 1, Georgia. And Georgia is an 8.5-point favorite at home.
Give me Rocky
Jordan,
Top.
Jordan wants Rocky
Give
Top.
me Rocky Top.
All right. I will go
Rocky
next.
Top till the day I die.
I'm going to go Georgia. I think Georgia I think they had some early not great results. We talked about the Kent State game and I mean, they really should have lost to Missouri. There's no other way to put it. Missouri let them off the hook. I think they're starting to roll now, and I think the combination of their offense and their defense is a little bit more consistent than Tennessee, who has kind of been all offense up until last week. I know I was just saying a bunch of nice things about Tennessee, but I think that line is way too much. I think this is like a toss-up game. I don't know why Georgia is -8.5, but I am taking Georgia. Devin, who do you got?
I got Georgia. I think this is going to be the best game so far of the season. I think both teams are really good. I'm so excited to see Tennessee's offense versus Georgia's defense. I think it's going to be one heck of a game. But I think Georgia pulls it out in the end. This is one of those situations where if it was in Knoxville, I'm taking Tennessee. I think home field advantage is going to be that important in this game.
I like it. And Tennessee fans are saying best game of the season. Like, did you not watch the Alabama game?
I think this game will be better.
What more do you want from us? But I agree.
Defense.
I think it has the potential to be a really good game. Here's an interesting one. Number 18, Oklahoma State, licking its wounds, going on the road to play Kansas, who after their hot start has lost 3 in a row. I'll go first. Well, back to me. I'm going to go Oklahoma State. I think this is one of those games where, like, just when you expect a team that is just dead and steamrolled and done and they quit, I think they bounce back. I think Kansas was a nice story early on. They don't have the horses quite yet. And I think I really like Mike Gundy. I cannot believe a Mike Gundy team would lose 48-0. So I think he's going to have them ready and bouncing back. We'll go to Devin next.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Allen Fieldhouse is a really tough place to play. The crowd's really into it there in the arena, but this is at the football stadium, so I guess Oklahoma State comes in. I bet Oklahoma State destroys them. That's my prediction. I think you hit it with Gundy. You don't expect the Gundy team to be 48-0. He's going to be screaming at them that he's a man. He's 40 all week. He's probably 50 now, isn't he?
I'm a man. I'm 48.
Yeah. So he's going to be screaming that all week, and they're gonna put up 48 in honor of him.
Give me Gundy by 1,000.
I like it. So probably the other big game that, as far as national implication goes, number 6 Alabama at number 16 LSU in Death Valley. Alabama is a 13-point favorite. Jordan, who you got?
Why do I have to pick first on the hard ones?
I'll go first. You want me to go first?
Sure.
Bama covers.
Bama covers. Jordan?
What, you're going to pick LSU?
feel like-
Alabama.
I hate Alabama, but I don't know. I'm going to go Bama. I'm not going to just waste a pick because I don't think LSU is going to.
I also am going Bama. I would love to buy into. I think LSU has been improving. I think we were kind of we made a mockery of Brian Kelly and they struggled early out of the gate, but they're definitely improving. And the win over Ole Miss showed that they had a really convincing home win over Ole Miss. But we can't forget that Tennessee went into LSU and just absolutely obliterated them a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So I think Alabama has similar type offensive weaponry. I don't know that they'll cover. I think 13 is a lot, but I suspect that they're going to win the game fairly easily. So I think that's the first one we've got where we're all on the same page, which is it's always nice to have
back to back.
Oklahoma State, just back to back. So this one might get a couple different reactions. We've got unranked Texas, horns down, going on the road at a surging number 13 Kansas State. Texas is 2.5-point favorites on the road at number 13.
Horns down.
Anybody not going horns down? Okay, we're moving on. 3 picks for K-State. Here's another interesting
We're all
one.
on the same boat.
Here's another interesting one
in the standings this week.
Number 5 Clemson, only 4.5-point favorites at Notre Dame.
So I'll lead off. I don't know if I'm going
go ahead, Jordan.
first, but I was actually in Ireland on my travels, and I saw a really cool Notre Dame T-shirt that was like the face mask looked like a glass of Guinness. So I didn't buy it, but it stuck with me. So I'm going Notre Dame.
I like it.
Golden Domers. Even though I hate Notre Dame and I think they suck, I think Clemson sucks too.
So I'll go next. I think this is actually going to be a game. I think Notre Dame has obviously not had a great season. They've been up and down. They lost to Stanford, who frankly has been horrible, and they lost at home to Stanford. But Clemson's just been kind of flirting with disaster a lot this season, and especially in road games, they have not been great. Wake Forest could have easily lost. Florida State could have easily lost. I think Notre Dame's really going to give them the game, but I think they're just good enough that they'll pull it out.
Yeah, Zach, I think if Rudy wasn't offsides, like we're looking at a different Notre Dame. So
I'm also going Clemson. Zach said that Clemson keeps flirting with disaster. They're flirting, but they don't get married this week. So,
well,
saving themselves for marriage.
Speaking of overrated ACC teams, our last matchup is the only other matchup of 2 ranked teams this week, and it's number 20 Wake Forest at number 21 NC State. And surprisingly, after just getting manhandled by Louisville, Wake is 5-point favorites on the road in at NC State on this one.
Can both teams lose?
Tie. I'll go first. I think it pains me to pick a Wake Forest team that just got absolutely obliterated, but NC State doesn't have their quarterback, and they looked almost as bad. They still got the win, but Thursday night they played Virginia Tech, who is really, really bad. And we haven't really talked about them because they're so bad. Obviously, Brent Pry, the former Virginia Tech coach, the former Penn State defensive coordinator. He's just about to be. It's been bad, and NC State really should have lost. They really should have lost that game. I'm picking Wake Forest solely because they still have their quarterback, and NC State doesn't have one.
Do they though? Emotionally, do they have their quarterback?
I mean, he still exists in uniform, I guess. The other one,
I'll double down. Give me Wake.
All right. Siri's got a chance to redeem herself. So Wake is heads. Hey, Siri, flip a coin. Oh, I have the volume off. It says
Siri's
heads.
just given up.
It says heads.
So who do you want, Wake?
Yeah. No, NC State. Screw Siri. I got to try to.
Siri said both teams suck.
Yeah. I got to try to beat Zach. I'll get one there, try to go against him. Didn't I go with you every single game this week? So that's pointless. Might as well.
Well, you have Maryland. You have Maryland.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
So Maryland and NC State. That's
Okay. Super dog
All right.
before Jordo's computer dies. Zach, you got one? I got one.
I did have one. If you have yours handy, go ahead. I didn't write it down, but I had it somewhere.
Yep. I have Liberty going in and beating a terrible Arkansas team. Liberty is getting 13.5 points. 13.5 points at a terrible Arkansas team. So I got Liberty. The other one I was looking at is West Virginia over Iowa State. West Virginia getting 7 points. They're playing a little better right now. They still suck, but I think Iowa State kind of sucks. So, but my super dog's Liberty. They're going to go beat Arkansas.
I like it. I'm trying to find.
So you got Liberty Mutual over Geico. Got it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that wasn't
Jordan,
that funny.
If you
I
have
don't
one,
get
go
the
ahead.
Geico and Arkansas.
I don't know. It just was funny.
Oh, okay.
Insurance.
Insurance.
I got Nebraska over Minnesota.
Yeah, that's a good one. I thought about
That's
that
one
one
I was
too.
looking at. Oh man.
Give me that
Oh, wow.
corn.
Oh, here's who it was. I have this is kind of really against the grain here. Louisville with the huge win over Wake Forest we were just talking about. James Madison on the road at Louisville. They are 7.5-point dogs, and I am calling that they're going to beat the spread and pull the upset.
It's a good one. I thought about that one too. It's a good one.
I like it.
All right, you guys got anything else?
No. I have to use the bathroom very badly though.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you tell Jordan that you appreciate his service. Just say thank you for your service in the chat. We're just going to end on that every week. So games on Saturday. See you guys.
Later.
Thanks for watching the Nittany No Huddle podcast.
Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Podcasts are posted weekly on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss one of our new shows.